Tim, I'll turn your camera for this morning.
What's
I'll
that?
turn your camera for you.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I haven't heard anybody complain they're getting whiplash, but it's go slower. Boy, new battery makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Frankly, flying.
They light up.
Yeah. These are little button batteries, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are, I hate those things. Does anybody have anything they need to announce or extra joys and concerns? Okay, we'll do that when we come to it. So. Does everybody know the theme to Cheers?
Yeah.
Do you know what to play? Yeah, that's pretty close. I was going to bring a thing and play it, and I ran out of time. Indeed. Because our theme today is belonging. I'll have to do this again when we start, but belonging, and the sermon, the talk I'm bringing, the guy refers to Cheers, and I thought it'd be cool to play that little, you've always got a friend when you come here. So, and I was going to play that at the beginning, because I thought that'd be a nice touch, and then time got away from me, so. It was close. I recognized it. Ding. Okay, welcome to First Universalist Church of New Madison. This beautiful spring day, nice and sunny. We don't have the heat on today, because I'm a cold weather person. I keep the temperature down in our house. My wife walks around like an Eskimo with all kinds of sweaters and stuff. It's a compromise we've reached. We do it my way. But I sacrifice because she keeps the water heater turned up to like 220 or something. So she can have a hot shower that lasts for 20 hours. So give and take, that's what it's all about. And I have to announce in June 15th, it'll be 45 years for us, which is something I never thought I would see. So. Okay, any announcements? We're doing flowers. We're putting all that together, and coming up next Saturday or the Saturday after that, one of these Saturdays, we'll make an announcement We'll have a meeting at the church here in the morning to put everything in pots and get them ready to go, and then we'll decide how to distribute to the people that get them. I'm excited to do it. I think it's a really good outreach, and I think the people who would receive the flowers would appreciate it too. Derek will be here next Sunday, and I think he's back from Arizona, and I think Nancy is going to be here the Sunday after that, and then we'll see what happens after that. I don't have anything nailed down. I called Mike Short. He's retired from the business. I said, if you feel the fire horse bell rings and you want to come out again, we don't need anything special, because he said he's doing mostly scientific stuff. And I said, that's pretty much what we want. If you remember when you came here, he was a member of that studying the life of Jesus. I can't remember exactly. It's a Jesus
seminar.
Jesus seminar. So I guess he thought that was mandatory, and I said, no, that's definitely not. We're interested in Jesus if you want to talk about him, but we're interested in having anybody that can speak. So if you feel like it, come back. But he's doing good, and that was good to hear. Let's see. Anything else? We'll do the welcome. Actually, we're starting with, this is the theme for today is belonging. So we're all going to be part of the herd, and you're going to get herds and flocks and groups and whatever from the animal, insect, fish kingdoms. Not many people, but it'll give you the idea of what's going along. This is A Blessing Called Sanctuary by Jan Richardson. You hardly knew how hungry you were to be gathered in, to receive the welcome that invited you to enter entirely. Nothing of you found foreign or strange, nothing of your life that you were asked to leave behind or to carry in silence or in shame. Tentative steps became settling in, leaning into the blessing that enfolded you, taking your place in the circle that stunned you with its unimagined grace. You began to breathe again, to move without fear, to speak with abandon, the words you carried in your bones that echoed in your being. You learned to sing, but the deal with this blessing is that it will not leave you alone. It will not let you linger in safety, in stasis. The time will come when this blessing will ask you to leave, not because it is tired of you, but because it desires for you to become the sanctuary that you have found, to speak your word into the world, to tell what you have heard with your own ears and seen with your own eyes, known in your own heart, that you are a beloved, precious child of God, beautiful to behold, and you are welcome and more than welcome here. The prelude is If I Would Ever Leave You. belonging anymore. So everything is a balance, as we talk about here. Chalice lighting is a flame to light our path by Deborah Burrell. Fire consumes and casts a bright light. May our chalice flame consume our regrets for the past, our fears about the future, and our worries about today. May it light a path for us of joy and peace. Opening hymn is number 21 in your hymnal, For the Beauty of the Earth. Sister, brother, parent, child, for the kinship we all share. Isn't that appropriate? Okay, children's story. Black or white? Now, horses, gotta have horses, and this is the Mustang herd out west. And opening hymn, that's the deer herd. I'm getting behind here. And children's story. And appropriately, the children's story is black or white all over. Where the sky is wide and wild grass grows the color of honey, hundreds and hundreds of animals graze on the rich earth. There are big animals that scoop water with long noses, and tall creatures with necks so long they eat leaves from the treetops. Once four-legged creatures with stripes on their heads and backs and legs lived on one side of this beautiful plain. On the other side was another herd of four-legged creatures who also had stripes all over their bodies. While these two groups lived close to each other, only a gallop away, they kept a good distance between them. One day, while he was grazing with his family, a stallion lifted his head from the grass and spoke to his son. Punda, the stallion, said, "There are some things you need to know. We are special animals. These magnificent black stripes on our white bodies are beautiful beyond compare." And one day, while she was grazing with her family, a mare from the other herd lifted her head from the grass and spoke to her daughter. "Melia," the mare said, "there are some things you must learn. What makes us special are these beautiful white stripes that we wear across our black coats. None can compare to us." All year long, Punda grazed with his herd. Soon he was big enough to walk away a little by himself. Melia, too, had grown enough to wander alone. One day, the two animals rounded a corner and came face to face. Never had Punda seen such a beautiful beast as the one before his eyes, and Melia's heart beat quickly with the sight of the lovely creature in front of her. The two talked and played, then galloped home so fast a plume of dust rose into the blue sky. Both were eager to tell their parents. "I found the most beautiful mare today," Punda said to his father. But when his father learned where she came from, he said, "No, Punda, that isn't right. You shouldn't see her again." "Why do you say that?" Punda asked, surprised. "It's obvious, Punda," his father tried to explain. "You only have to look at her." "I did look at her. I think she's beautiful," said Punda. "Not at all," the father persisted. "She is too different. She is ugly. After all, she is black with white stripes, and we are white with black stripes." Meanwhile, at her home, Melia told her mother about Punda. "He is the most beautiful colt in all the world," said Melia. But when her mother discovered where he came from, she said, "No, Melia, you shouldn't see him again." Melia wanted to know why. "It's obvious," Melia's mother tried to explain. "He's white with black stripes, not at all like us. We are black with white stripes." Punda and Melia didn't know what to do. Sad and heartbroken, they kept apart for many days. Then one day, Punda and Melia arrived at the watering hole at the same time. At first, they thought they would run away, but their happiness at seeing each other overcame their fear, and they embraced. They spent the rest of the day together, grazing on the wild grass and playing in the shadows of the snow-covered mountain. Punda and Melia grew older and continued to see each other, always in secret. Finally, they went off to begin a family of their own. Their parents vowed never to see them again. When the young couple had their first foal, no one could tell whether the baby was white or black and white. The same was true when they had more colts and fillies. Punda and Melia's parents heard about the babies, and their hearts broke at the thought of not seeing their grandchildren. They decided it was now time to pay a visit. Punda and Melia were surprised, but above all, they were profoundly happy. "I want to apologize to you," Punda's father said. "And I do too," Melia's mother. "We are glad that you've come," Punda said with great joy. "Here are your grandchildren," Melia said as she introduced the little ones. The grandparents had tears in their eyes as they kissed each grandchild. From that day on, all of the zebras from both herds became friends. Today, no one can remember why they hadn't liked each other. It all seemed so long ago. Good story. Joys and concerns. And we have an ant colony. Some people don't like ants, but they are a pretty social group and pretty organized as they go about their lives. Do we have any joys and concerns?
Might want to mention or all think about the conflict between Israel and Palestine right now. Any loss of life, much loss of life. The perennial traditional conflicts prevail, unfortunately, and it seems that they're impervious or unable to reach any accord for peace, which would be one of the best peace-making efforts in all of history if that comes about.
It is supremely sad that this conflict has gone on for so long, and for me personally, the saddest part of it is Benjamin Netanyahu, as the Prime Minister of Israel, used to be considered a hard-right conservative, and used to be considered so conservative and so far right that he would never be elected. Israel has changed so much. I've heard commentators say he is now considered middle of the road. What is happening, and as I've talked about here, and we'll talk about more, is something happening to our civilization? Are we in some kind of cycle of up and down where we're headed into that downward cycle where everything becomes more and more separated, people become more and more unhappy with each other? Each side is seeing the black or the white and not the white on the black. Each side is saying don't fraternize, don't have any comments or any connection with the other side. Israel, which has suffered so much at the hands of the world, is now turned into almost a South Africa. They've built a wall. They bomb buildings in Palestine under the excuse that there might be Hamas people in the building. The death toll there is rising exponentially. It's a sad situation, and I do not have an answer for it. Any other joys or concerns? I have a joy. Curly, which is the horse I'm the part owner of, with Marjorie Paul-Hamus. His actual name is Open My Eyes. Won his race at Hoosier Park last week. It was at 11 o'clock at night, so unfortunately I wasn't there. Who ever heard of having horse races at 11 o'clock at night? I guess for those people who are stupid enough to bet their money at any time of the day or night, they're going to make an offering to get their money away from them. So I watched it on video, and I have a copy of it if anybody wants to see it after the service. I'll show you. Open My Eyes, winning by a nose. I want to mention masks. The CDC has mentioned that masks are no longer mandatory for those who have been vaccinated. Here, our policy is going to remain, I think everybody here has been vaccinated, but we are going to remain with masks until we're certain that the safety margin has been exceeded. My wife is very sensitive to this. She has an immune-compromised disease, and so she's very careful about wearing her mask. I still wear my mask when I go out in public, and I wear my mask when I'm here when I'm not speaking. And I would encourage all of you to be on the safe side, because what they're doing it on is public recognizance on their own, on a person's word, when they come in and say, I've been vaccinated. The question you ask them, if you want to know whether they've been vaccinated or not, ask them who won the last election, and that will tell you whether they have been vaccinated or not. Yes?
And we have cards to carry.
We have cards to carry, and places like Texas and Florida and Louisiana are passing laws banning the use of cards.
And Ohio.
Because they're fake.
Yes, because it's an intrusion into your free speech. This is one of the things when I talk about what's happening to the country. When a state passes a law that an individual business can't ask someone to whether they've been vaccinated or not and have to take their word for it, when it's been painfully obvious that the people who don't want to wear masks also won't tell you the truth whether they've been vaccinated or not. That's why I say the true way to find out is to slip that question in, was the last election honest? And that will tell you whether they've been vaccinated or not. It's almost a one-to-one comparison if you pay attention to it. Any other joys and concerns? Whoops, I guess Kenny went and got new batteries for us. Man, look at those things will blind you. And here I forgot to put them on. I want to thank Kenny for everything he does in the background. He's like making this place go and has for generations. So. Anything else? Okay, for those thoughts, fears, hopes, desires, if you have any at home and you need help with, please let us know. We remember you and all of your pains and your joys and your concerns in our hearts and in our prayers. Okay, the message. Honeybees are in a terrible shape, but that's not the message, but we all know that they are. Hopefully the USDA and the EPA will start passing laws to outlaw the pesticides. I think I'm seeing more and more information that the pesticides that farmers use and ranchers and orchardists use are what's causing a lot of the problem for bees. But our message is the longing for belonging. And this is, what's the guy's name? I thought it was pretty good. I forgot to write his name down, so I'll get it for you later. I really like this one. Do you belong? It's been almost 40 years since the CB sitcom Cheers first aired with its theme song that said, "Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. They're always glad you came." And I was going to bring the music because I think everybody knows that. You can play it in the back of your head. And that's a pretty amazing comment. And it was, I guess I would say, an unfortunate sign of the times that by the 1980s, the most plausible such place for belonging was where? The neighborhood bar. Not church, not your community service club. The neighborhood bar was where everybody knows your name and you're always at home. And that's going to be changing. The millennials don't do a lot of bars. There's a lot of things, and we'll talk about that as we go along, about the changes that society is bringing to us. I can't believe the number of people. When you go to Kroger or Walmart, you see like 10 people with those giant carts dragging them around picking groceries. People don't even shop anymore. People at Kroger and Walmart shop for them and then put it in their car. Or you can even get DoorDash to bring it to your house for a couple bucks. But I digress. It feels good to be recognized and seen, for everyone knows your name. It feels good to be liked, to be around people who are glad you are there, to feel good for many people to have a mug of beer in hand. The show attracted viewers by rolling these good feels all together into one. But it doesn't really much work that way. If you were inspired by the show to seek community in a neighborhood bar, you were probably disappointed. You may have had some enjoyable evenings, but in the end, there wasn't a lasting life satisfaction there. The pleasure of a shared libation at the end of the day of working together depends on being grounded in the working together. And without that grounding, it soon becomes a simulacrum of itself. The neo-pagan and eco-feminist writer Starhawk got a little closer when she expressed it this way. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us, eyes will light up as we enter, voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter, a circle of healing, a circle of friends, someplace where we can be free. Belonging means not just that everybody knows your name and they're glad you came, but there is meaningful work to do together. For our usness to be real, it must be usness in service to something larger than usness. To belong, we must not only belong to each other, but also to a shared purpose. Or rather, let me now back up and approach it this way. Let's start with the fact, not the feeling. The fact of belonging is constant. The feeling of belonging may be variable. The fact is you do belong no matter what. All God's critters got a place in the choir. You might feel you don't fit in. People can feel that way sometimes. They can have the impressions that the world doesn't have a place for them. But everything that was brought into being and the causes of its existence establish that it needs to exist. You are not separate. You never were. You never will be. So the issue is not whether you belong. You do. The issue is only whether you know it. Whether you understand it and live it like you understand it. Because sometimes we don't. Sometimes we disconnect, or rather we fall into believing the lie that we are disconnected. We might try to force it ourselves to fit in, or try to dominate others to make them recognize our importance. We might deny our inherent interconnection and thereby limit our own freedom. You belong to everyone and everything, and everyone and everything belongs to you. As Max Ehrmann's 1927 Desiderata says it, you are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. That's inalienable. Your belonging does not depend on everyone knowing your name. You belong even if no one knows your name. Your belonging does not depend on anybody being glad to have you around. You belong even if no one seems glad of it. You can step into your belonging, or you can step out of it and live from the false belief that you might not belong. To choose to step into your belonging, to accept that you belong, and that whatever is happening to you also belongs, is to step into your capacity for joy, for freedom, and for love. Any moment that you meet with joy is a moment you have stepped into your belonging, that belonging that is always there. Your belonging does not depend on finding somewhere the people to whom you can speak with passion without having the words catch in your throats. You belong even if such people never materialize. Knowing that you do will help you speak authentically to anyone. Your belonging does not, where am I going here? You begin to notice all the ways that circle of hands always have been opening to receive you. Brené Brown once defined belonging this way: belonging is the innate human desire to be part of something larger than us. Because this yearning is so primal, we often try to acquire it by fitting in and by seeking approval, which are not only hollow substitutes for belonging, but often barriers to it. Because true belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. Our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. When we don't grasp our inherent belonging, we are apt to try and fit in. We accept the model of a circle with an inside and an outside. We are trying to get or stay on the inside. This is the exclusivity conception of belonging. To be in requires keeping others out. I imagine the insurrectionists at the Capitol on January 6th were flooded with strong, wonderful feelings of belonging. They were there with their people, doing work they thought as important. It is powerfully attractive, and we are all susceptible to the attractions that can produce mob behavior. We want the feeling and forget the fact. We want the feeling of belonging and forget the fact of belonging. So as Brené Brown points out, fitting in is the opposite of belonging. Fitting in is the opposite of belonging. Fitting in is the greatest barrier to belonging. Fitting in, I discovered during the past decade of research, is assessing situations and groups of people, then twisting yourself into a human pretzel in order to get them to let you hang out with them. Belonging is something else entirely. It is showing up and letting yourself be seen and known as you really are. Love of gourd painting, intense fear of public speaking, and all. When we fit in, we assess the situation and acclimate. When we belong, we bring ourselves to it and say, "This is who I am." We don't shapeshift and hustle for the worthiness we already possess. Hence, Brown concluded that true belonging, that is, the feeling of belonging when it comes not from fitting in, but from the awareness of the fact of our inalienable belonging, only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. Thus, our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. I said that the pleasure of a shared libation at the end of the day of working together depends on being grounded in the working together, and without that grounding soon becomes a copy of itself. Let us now add that this pleasure also depends on bringing to the day's labor, as well as to its relaxation, our authenticity. The longing for belonging we have seen can be the true enemy of belonging, of resting in the awareness that it is impossible for you not to belong, that your belonging is inalienable. But the longing arises nonetheless, doesn't it? We have noted that your belonging does not depend on everyone knowing your name. You belong even though no one knows your name. Yet it still feels nice to be known, to be seen, to be respected, doesn't it? Take, for example, the neurophysicist that Brené Brown interviewed for her work on belonging. He told her, "My parents didn't care that I wasn't on the football team. My parents didn't care that I was awkward and geeky. I was in a group of kids at school who translated books into the Klingon language, and my parents were like, awesome! They took me to the Star Trek convention. Dr. Brown concludes, he got his sense of belonging from his parents' sense of belonging. Even if we don't get that from mom and dad, we have to create it for ourselves as adults, or we will always feel as if we're standing outside the big human party. If we don't get that from mom and dad, we have to create it for ourselves as adults. If you can do that, if you've been doing that, developing your self-acceptance and strengthening the abiding awareness of your inherent belonging, great. Maybe you've had some help along the way. If you didn't get it from mom and dad, your belonging might have been affirmed by teachers, by trusted friends, by spiritual practices, by inspiring books like You Belong by Sabine Selassie, which I have no acquaintance with, but I may look it up. Most of us could use a little help from time to time, remembering the inalienable belonging that gives us the courage to stand apart. Maybe you could use a little help in appreciating the unique beauty that is you, that belongs to the world. Here's one thing. One of the best ways to get that help is to offer it to others. The way to feel more welcome and accepted and warmly received is to be welcoming, accepting, and warmly receiving. And that brings us to the Jan Richardson poem that I started off this service with. She begins, you hardly know how hungry you were to be gathered in, to receive the welcome that invited you to enter entirely. Nothing of you found foreign or strange, nothing of your life that you were asked to leave behind or carry in silence or shame. Yes, that does feel good. And even if you know that your belonging is inherent, that it does not depend on others inviting you in, even if your self-acceptance is high and does not require the approval of others, it can begin to get hard if we have no sanctuary from people finding you foreign or strange. Even if you know your belonging is inherent, it does get hard to sustain that knowing in the face of unrelenting hostility, or even in the face of unrelenting indifference. The hunger to be gathered in, to receive the welcome that invites you to enter entirely, is not a hunger to be ashamed of. It does not mean you fail to be self-accepting and aware of your inherent belonging. You do belong. Everything does belong, and your hunger also belongs. If you've been coming back to this congregation for a while, long enough to become a member, it is because this place fed that hunger for, as Starhawk puts it, a circle of hands that will be open to receive us, eyes that will light up as we enter, and voices that will celebrate with us and say, glad to have you here, but we aren't going to offer you a drink. As Reverend Laurelyn Bellamy says in the words of those of you who have been coming regularly for a while, have heard me say a number of times as the benediction, if here you have found freedom, take it with you into the world. If you have found comfort, go and share it with others. If you have dreamed dreams, help one another that they may come true. If you have known love, give some back to a bruised and hurting world. Because once you found a little bit of comfort, the way to find more is to share it with others. This blessing of belonging in sanctuary, comes as a seed of joy planted in your heart, and once planted, it wants to grow. For it to grow, you must become the sanctuary. The seed, as Jan Richardson wrote, desires for you to become the sanctuary you have found, to speak your word into the world, to tell what you have heard with your own ears, seen with your own eyes, and known in your own heart, that you are beloved, a precious child of God, beautiful to behold. You are welcome and more than welcome here. The seed of awareness inherent in belonging wants to sprout and grow and send forth new seeds of joy to plant in other hearts. If you have ever found comfort in sanctuary, ease, and acceptance here, then go ahead and bask in that for as long as you can, because you won't be able to simply bask in it for too terribly long. It is the nature of this blessing that it will not leave you alone. And if it seems to you that the ease and sanctuary of this place doesn't quite feel quite like it used to for you, then you're ready for the next step. The way to feel more welcome and accepted and warmly received is to be welcoming, accepting, and warmly receiving. This means making our congregation a place more welcoming of people who have sometimes felt unwelcome. This also means the work of social justice, making the world a place of greater acceptance and celebration of diversity. When we talk about injustice and oppression, it isn't just to make you feel bad, it's to help you feel good by lifting up the wonderful meaning of work that is there for us to do together. If you need comforting, be a part of offering comfort to others and justice to all. That'll do it. May it be so. Comments? You might notice for anybody who's been to Europe, particularly England, that Cheers thing really exists there. They spend a lot of their social time in pubs, but a pub is like a gathering place for families and friends, and it's not just for drinking, and it's not just for getting out of the house and getting away from someone. They go together to the pub. It is a pretty incredible place, and most of them are very welcoming. You can walk in as a tourist into a pub and sit down at a table with other people, and pretty soon you'll be involved in the conversation. It's an amazing culture, and I hope they don't lose it. Anyone else have a comment? Belonging is an important thing, and we know that in our hearts, and it is hard. It's that temptation, as he said, of twisting yourself into a pretzel to become accepted. Goes on and on and on, and you see that every day. That is the hard part, is standing up and saying, this is who I am, and there are people who will accept me as I am without twisting yourself into a pretzel. This place offers you, in this county, a place to be a different kind of pretzel, a pretzel that twists to the left instead of the right. So, okay, time for the offering. Your choices, everybody is welcome to bring anything. If you need something, take something. If you're online or watching somewhere else and want to help us maintain our building electricity and maybe get air conditioning someday way in the future, feel free to slip a note under the door or send something to the website. It's listed on the website, and that's listed on the Facebook page. Boy, I left the hope and faith out of that second
Yeah.
line. How does that keep happening? I am not paying attention. I wanted to show you the offering. There's nothing more beautiful than a flight of Canada geese. Well, there are things more beautiful than that, not at that particular time. And I heard dairy cows. I could never go past that without putting it down. Let's see. Our closing hymn is 101, Abide With Me. Ills have no weight, and tears no bitterness. Hold that close. You do belong. And our closing words. Oh, before I do that, last call for snacks. They've been in the freezer and they're out again. If you don't eat them today, the dog gets them, which he will be very happy for. And I have more in the freezer for next week. The water's on, it's hot, so you can have coffee. And I actually brought up a couple of juice boxes if somebody doesn't want coffee to drink. So keep that in mind. Closing words. Well, let me close the chalice first. And then we'll do that. Go forth in simplicity by Samuel Trumbore. Go forth in simplicity, find and walk the path that leads to compassion and wisdom, that leads to happiness, peace, and ease. Welcome the stranger and open your heart to a world in need of healing. Be courageous before the forces of hate. Hold and embody a vision of the common good that serves the needs of all people. And as I'm thinking of that and thinking of belonging, let me throw this in at the end because we're running a little short anyway. they're having problems at my wife's church where she's the interim at New Carlisle. There's a certain group that wants to open the church up wide. And that's the strange thing about belonging, as these people are your friends, your congregants, people you spend time with. And yet that does not negate the conflicts that arise within people, and we all know that conflicts arise even within your own family. There is a way to handle dissension and disagreement. It has to be in the open. It has to be bring it up and discuss it, and not, which has happened over there, people pass information around in the background and then try and foment somewhat of a rebellion. That is not helpful or peaceful for anyone. It doesn't help anyone. So when you have a sense of belonging, invest in that belonging. Be honest with people. They will trust them to share with you what your disagreements are. Trust them to understand and try to reach out to you. And you, as it is said in our presentation today, have to reach out to them. You have to model the behavior you want to see. Okay. Postlude. Till There Was You. Till There Was You. The blessing of music is it takes those little emotional feelings and wraps them around your heartstring and just kind of tugs on them. Where would we be without that? All right, that closes our service from First Universalist Church of New Madison. If you need something, please let us know, and we'll be working on flowers in the next week or two. So be prepared if you're able to help on that. No matter what the CDC says, and I've heard people say they don't trust the CDC because they keep changing their minds. That's called the scientific method, folks. When the facts change, the recommendations change. Not everything stays the same. We're not going to stay in 1800 or 1860 or whatever year you like the best. So adapt to the change, welcome the change, help others embrace the change, and have a good week. And file your taxes Monday if you haven't done so.